Greetings, I am Toglin, Hell's Harlequin, but you may call me Tog. So, today I was thinking we could talk about race and gender swap recast of fictional characters. Hollywood has always historically made some rather baffling casting decisions. I'm looking at you, Mickey Rooney. None of us can forget about his infamous performance in Breakfast at Tiffany's, where he is basically a World War II Japanese stereotype complete with buck teeth. One of the most hilarious casting decisions of all time was in 2003. There was a movie called Tiptoes that had Gary Oldman as a little person and Peter Dinklage as a French communist. And in 1965, Laurence Olivier played Othello in full-on blackface, which even at that time people thought was ridiculous. The practice of casting white people in minority roles has earned the title whitewashing. It's not as practiced today. There is definitely modern examples, such as Lone Ranger, Gods of Egypt, and then there was the very controversial casting of Tilda Swinton for the Ancient One. One of the reasons that one was particularly controversial is because it was done to placate China. China has been trying to deny the Tibetan identity. There's also the movie The Dark Knight Rises. Due to my Mexican heritage, I was personally miffed by the decision to cast Tom Hardy in the role of Bane rather than a Latino actor. Many people defend that decision, saying that Tom Hardy was the most entertaining part of the movie, but that's not saying much considering it was the worst Batman movie ever made. Yes, I'm aware Batman and Robin exists. I still stand by that statement. I really hate that movie. Some examples that would be on the debatable side would include Scarlett Johansson playing the Major from Ghost in the Shell. For one thing, she resembles the Major quite a bit, and for another thing, the Major is mostly robotic, so she could potentially look like anyone. Another example for debate would be Liam Neeson playing Ra's al Ghul in Batman Begins, because even though Ra's al Ghul is said to be Middle Eastern, he has always been drawn with blue or green eyes, so that makes casting him a rather difficult decision. The more common controversy nowadays would be, what should I call it? I'm not going to call it brownwashing because that sounds disgusting. I guess I'll call it diversity casting? But I'm also not entirely sure if diversity casting is accurate, because it also applies to comics and video games, where they take a traditionally white character and make them non-white, or when they take a traditionally male character and make them female. Or in the case of Ironheart, they do both. It's kinda funny, because when I first started my channel, one of my very first videos was called Laser Dragon, an SJW story, which poked fun at this very concept. And then later I did a video discussing the casting of a black girl for The Little Mermaid. I felt like it was time for a deep dive on this subject because of an open casting call for a specifically black Superman. With the call for a black Superman, a lot of comic book fans were hoping that this particular Superman would be Calvin Ellis rather than Clark Kent. Calvin Ellis is from a different dimension, he's the president, and he's based on former President Barack Obama. But it has been confirmed that this new Superman movie will, in fact, have Clark Kent as the main protagonist. Which isn't too surprising considering that J.J. Abrams is on this project, so I'm not expecting very much creativity of any sorts. Although I wouldn't be surprised if they destroyed 5 planet Kryptons in the beginning of the movie rather than just 1. In general, people seem to be more accepting of the changing in a major character, especially a superhero if it's more of a passing of the mantle, such as Miles Morales. Although people were not a big fan at all of female Thor, and Marvel went out of their way to make this as offensive as possible. Like saying Odin's son is no longer Thor. They actually called him Odin's son rather than Thor when they were making the description of a new Thor. They say, she's not Lady Thor, she's not female Thor, she's not Thor-Rita, she's just now Thor. And the Thor we know and love has been completely replaced, and she is canon. So I can understand completely why people were very upset by this. Actually, I think things like this are the biggest reasons why people are hyper-aware of the gender and race recast. Before the culture war really exploded as much as it did, they were able to slip a lot of gender and race recasts without anyone really noticing. Look at 2000's Bedazzled. They have a female devil, but in the 1960s version it was a male devil. The 1940s movie His Girl Friday actually has a woman playing what they originally intended to be a male role. The 1980s movie The Incredible Shrinking Woman was actually a remake of the 50s movie The Incredible Shrinking Man. So the gender swap was common, and the race swap a lot of people never really noticed, such as Billy D. Williams playing Harvey Dent in Tim Burton's Batman. And then making Ford black in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy when in the book he's described as an average-looking British man with wiry gingerish hair. There are certain race swaps that are applauded rather than unnoticed, especially if they're played by competent actors, such as Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury and Will Smith as Agent J. For my personal opinion of both whitewashing and diversity casting, in my mind, they're basically the same thing? I understand why whitewashing is more frowned upon because the argument against diversity casting is to simply make more minority characters. But if they are taken up by white actors, what roles are left for those minorities? But essentially, they are both simply the practice of casting an actor in a role you didn't expect them to be casted. As much as I aspire to be unbiased, I'm really not. I'm really just stuck in my ways and I really don't like change, especially for things that I enjoy. I don't even like that Games Workshop updated the Warhammer logo. I don't like that we never get to see Wolverine in bright yellow in any of the movies, cause I grew up with the X-Men cartoon. Changing the race or gender of a character is similar to changing a backstory or setting. It's a huge risk. Sometimes it pays off, but a lot of times it doesn't, especially if the character is very iconic and we're used to seeing them in a certain way. It would be interesting to see what kind of reception Black Superman has, whether or not it would be too jarring for people, or whether they would accept it. Only time will tell. Anyway, these are my thoughts. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, and I wish all of you a pleasant rest of your day.